The final day of YNW Melly's trial shared his emotional reaction to the jury's verdict, including his lawyers and the prosecutor's final closing statements. So many important parts were overlooked, so here's what you need to know. YNW Melly would greet the jury today by standing beside his lawyers. Knowing how important today is, while also knowing the rest of his life will now be changed, all depending on the jury's final verdict. As you could tell, he was very nervous.
Jury entry.
As it was now time for the closing statements, YNW Melly's lawyer would begin first by sharing this.
Even though the Jeep was searched for hours and hours, processed for hours and hours, he finds additional evidence. 2 projectiles that everyone else missed. Important. And that when he did his analysis, 2 important things occurred. He didn't go in there blindly to do any analysis. He told you that the prosecutors in this case told them that the defendant in this case was a young man. And we need you to do a trajectory analysis to put him on the scene.
As YNW Melly's lawyer was mocking the testimony from Sergeant Williams, the man that was in charge of the analysis of the vehicle's damage. Williams stated that this crime couldn't have been a drive-by earlier on in the trial.
Assignment, which is to determine if this is a drive. And my determination was that this is not a drive-by. And it's based upon this picture here, which is a very good picture to describe it. All of these rounds are done. One is done at a stationary position. The at a stationary position when all but one of these rounds are going in. The one round that has some movement in it, which is round site L here. The actually moving in that to create the little bit of a that you see there.
Okay, a lot of information in that answer, so let's break it down a little bit. You mentioned so I'm gonna zoom in on site F.
He would take note of every single hole that was inside of the vehicle and then used what is called the stick method to find out how the holes were created, as well as the direction of where it came from.
Number, you said 17 outside the car. How many rounds were inside of the car?
3.
And can you exclude the for Mr. Williams and Mr. Thomas as coming from outside of the car?
Yes. From the driver's side back seat.
As to the shot that was Christopher Thomas, where did that emanate from?
Driver's side back seat.
No. Is it possible for there to have been 2 inside that car?
No.
Why not?
There is no time.
As YNW Melly's lawyers didn't agree with his police work at all. This would even then lead to YNW Melly's lawyer screaming over the fact that the jury has to make a decision on YNW Melly's life with such little evidence.
And tell him that he's going to live life in the state penitentiary without parole or being on parole. This is the investigation they want you to rely upon and say it's proof beyond and to the exclusion of every reasonable doubt? I guess so, according to them.
YNW Melly's lawyer would continue being mad inside of the courtroom, as his next argument is the original crime being a quote drive-by, yet the police never even looked at the surrounding stores or banks' surveillance cameras to see if there was any crimes in the area to investigate.
That he doesn't go to the on Miramar Parkway to check their surveillance tape. He doesn't go to Applebee's to check their surveillance tape. He doesn't go to Polo Tropical or the gas station or the bank on Miramar Parkway to check their surveillance tapes. When the car's on 184th Avenue, he doesn't go to the fire station to check their tapes, surveillance tapes. Doesn't go back to the two elementary schools, Sunset Lakes and West Broward Elementary, to check their surveillance tape because he knows it all. He knows it. How do you know it if you don't check?
Which is a very fair point. The police never even bothered to take YNW Melly and YNW Bortland's word that this was a drive-by. They instead just looked at them immediately as guilty, even though if it was a drive-by, would have driven at least in front of one of these stores that had surveillance cameras on the front. Yet the police never even bothered to look. However, it could be due to YNW Bortland lying to the police on the night of the crime during an interview.
And I'm driving, ducking for my life, trying to make sure I don't get hit. And you telling me, you telling me about some shit. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? I'm trying to make sure I don't get hit. I'm driving. I'm trying to make sure I don't get hit. You know what I'm saying? What I'm gonna be worried about? You know what I'm saying?
I know it's not for you to worry about.
Shit crazy, bro.
But if you tell me it happened there's gotta be some evidence there. There's gonna be broken glass, just like there's broken glass over here from when you guys opened the doors and stuff like that. Okay, there's gonna be broken glass over there when the windows got out. There's gonna be casings from the people at your car. Okay, there's gonna be evidence over there. Okay, right now, there's nothing. I kind of think I know what happened because I got information.
It was now time for the prosecutors to start their closing statements, as she would begin revealing what YNW Melly's motive could have been to do this crime.
They were buddies since they grew up. But look at the stress being placed on this defendant as the only one bringing the money in, as the only person who's paying the bills. Look at the tension on there, right? Look at the issues and concerns with Mr. Williams, Anthony Williams, and the defendant's mother. That they're the messages on there to that effect. So look at, for you can also look at the manner in which the was committed.
Shortly after, she would then share a new angle of the music video recording that happened later on the day of the crime, where at this angle of the frame, you can see where the FBI tracked YNW Melly's cell phone that was located in his jeans pocket at the time.
We have October 26th of 2018. Sun's going down, and the defendant's phone also shows him at this location in Cocoa. And he is dancing and singing and performing, wearing the same jacket, an identical jacket to what Chris Thomas was wearing the night before, and showing Mr. Henry wearing the denim jacket, like Mr. Williams was wearing the night before. And so the question was posed about a contractual agreement and losing money to be there. Well, ladies and gentlemen, look at the text messages between Mr. Devins and his mother, because he wasn't worried a couple of months before about missing a show because he was getting his hair braided.
Why this is so important is due to YNW Melly's cell phone being supposedly missing at this time of the day. Adrian Davis revealed YNW Melly could not find his cell phone for quite some time after the crime. However, tracking evidence proves that YNW Melly had it the entire time. A new piece of evidence would also then be revealed, where the prosecutor shared that 100K Track, aka YNW Melly's manager, was sitting on $16 million for the YNW record label, where the prosecutor claims Melly could have done this crime so that money wasn't going to be split 4 ways between him, Bortland, Sack Chaser, and Juvie.
You heard $16 million was coming into Jameson Francois, and that you saw $15,000, $10,000 payments going to Mr. Demons. Simple math. Splitting something 4 ways or 2 ways with Mr. Henry, who wasn't smart enough to even properly give a statement to keep Mr. Demons away from the car.
Where she would then end off by closing with a very serious and very concerning message to the jury. As online lawyers mentioned, it's a very commonly used tactic by lawyers where they make it so concerning it's designed to make jurors remember it.
The question that you have to answer, and that you can now answer based on all of this evidence, is that Jamel Demons was sitting in the back seat of that Jeep, and he was the one that Christopher Thomas and Anthony Williams. And you know that because even if you choose to disbelieve one part of the evidence, 2 parts of the evidence, you can see what the overall picture is. The overall picture puts Mr. Demons in the back seat of that Jeep. It puts him holding. You don't to know that he committed these 2 crimes.
This has been extremely hard on YNW Melly, as well as his mother Jamie King inside of the courtroom. Earlier in the trial, we learned YNW Juvie's sister allegedly reached out to Melly's mother, Jamie King, on social media.
What's been going on in the courtroom?
Well, Anjanette, it's been a very interesting morning. It did start off earlier with the defense bringing up an issue. Apparently, Juvie's sister posted on, I guess, one of the social media outlets, and she said that she was going to Jamie King. And so that caused a big, issue in the courtroom. It wasn't anything that we got on tape, but it did happen this morning. It was on the record, and she has a bodyguard now. So that was one of the first issues that the court dealt with this morning. And it was interesting because the judge did basically say, if you needed more security, I can get it for you. Ultimately, it was determined that the security she had, the bodyguard, was going to be enough. So,
as this even led to YNW Melly's mother, Jamie, now having security guards with her at all time throughout the courtroom. Allegedly, this affected Melly, making him very concerned for his mother during trial, as Melly was seen looking very emotional in court as he's nervous for his mother.
Jury entry.
As allegedly from sources inside of the courtroom, YNW Melly was crying a bit as he was that concerned. The trial in general has been taking a toll on Melly's mother, as she has revealed many times that she's been dealing with a lot of stress ever since the trial began. This is when we would even see YNW Melly earlier in the trial trying to comfort her.
Sorry.
You'll just. Don't do it.
Jamie King was doing fine during trial until the most incriminating evidence against Melly was shown, as the lead detective on the stand against Melly would reveal this text message to the world.
The PZ Gambino account asked him if he was okay, and his response was, "I did that," and placed a smiley face emoji.
And the next message from 10/26/2018 at 16:02 from Eastern Standard Time. The YNW Melly account says what?
After that, SHHHH.
And could you please stand and point on the right side of the screen exactly which part you're saying where the YNW Melly account says, "I did that"?
I did that. This is the thread ID. This is the text. This is the author. And this is the recipient. Then you come down here, same thing. The ID is for the actual
message, which is just specific that wanted message, then the threat ID is the actual continuing message.
For more context on the text message, after the passings in 2018, somebody would message YNW Melly on Instagram asking, "Hey, are you okay? Tell me something." Where Melly literally replied saying, "I did that," with a happy face emoji. Once this was being shared within the courtroom, YNW Melly was covering his face, looking embarrassed inside. This would also be the last piece of evidence that the prosecutor showed the jury, which makes sense as it makes him look the most guilty.
So the state has officially rested their case on the YNW Melly trial. And starting tomorrow at 9 a.m., Melly's defense team will bring in their witnesses. Now, it seems as though Melly's attorneys are going to be offering a very short defense because according to the judge, sometime on Wednesday or Thursday, they're going to be doing their closing arguments and then the jury will be sequestered to finally take the case, which means the jury gets to deliberate and determine whether Melly's going to be found guilty or innocent. Now, Melly's attorneys did file a motion for a judgment of acquittal. So essentially, Melly's attorneys are arguing that the reason why they asked for the motion for a judgment of acquittal is because the prosecutor has a circumstantial based case, but the circumstantial based case is only going to lead the jury to start trying to take that Swiss cheese and fill in those holes themselves. Because the prosecutor, according to Melly's defense, has not offered the jury any substantive evidence to be able to fill those holes.
With all that being the most concerning evidence against Melly, Melly's best chance at winning his case all revolves around his 6th grade best friend named Adrian Davis.
It's all about Davis's testimony. I mean, they called him witness. The question is, was he believable? What do you think?
Yeah, I think that his demeanor was great on the stand. I don't think he got overly emotional. I don't think he got combative with a very combative district attorney, which is always helpful. I think the biggest issue that they're going to have is what's his motive to lie, right? That's any eyewitness that you have. What is their motive to lie? Why should the jury believe them over the science they heard for weeks prior? And I think that's going to be the larger issue, his friendship with Melly, and how can the prosecution frame that as the reason that he would have to come in and lie to the jury. But as far as how he testified, his demeanor, the way that he held up under cross, I think he did a great job.
Davis has been best friends with YNW Melly since the 6th grade, giving an amazing testimony for Melly by sharing the first alibi in the case. However, Juvie's mother thinks otherwise, calling him a liar on social media. However, the opening question that Davis would reveal is that YNW Melly wasn't even at the crime scene when it happened.
Are you 100% sure that Melly got into the red Mitsubishi to go home?
Yes.
Are you 100% sure that this young man learned of his friends at the exact same time you learned of it?
Yes.
And that was at the house?
Yes.
Are you 100% sure that when people were getting on the phone, that this young man was looking for his phone to call people?
Yes.
As Davis would even double down his claims of YNW Melly not being there by sharing that Melly was picked up by the YNW members that were inside of the red vehicle at the recording studio. They needed to pick up YNW Melly as they needed somebody with house keys to let them in. YNW Melly and Bortland were the only two that owned a pair of house keys.
Okay, so the only two people you know who had a key to the house was this young man.
Yes.
And Cortland Henry.
Yes.
Did you see this young man unlock the door of the house?
Yes.
Who was the last person to get out of the red Mitsubishi to go inside the house?
Trayvon. He was in the cot still asleep.
Did you see where Melly went?
To his room.
And where was his bedroom?
When you first walked in the house, can't miss it, it's right down the left.
Okay. This is a 1 or 2 story house?
2.
As Davis mentioned that he watched YNW Melly walk to the front door, open the door, and then walk straight to his bedroom down the hall. While sleeping for roughly an hour or two, that's when members in the house would begin screaming, yelling for everyone to wake up as they just learned what happened to Sack Chaser and Juvie.
Did there come a time in the early morning hours that you were woken up and heard some distressing news.
Yes.
What did you hear?
The second Julie was
When you heard that, did you see Melly in the house?
Yes.
Did you see Melly how he was dressed in the house?
Yes.
What was he wearing?
Shorts and a t-shirt, I think.
Adrian Davis saw YNW Melly inside of the YNW house, waking up out of bed in a t-shirt and shorts while learning about the quote drive-by. This is breaking information if he is telling the truth. However, Davis would continue sharing what was happening inside of the YNW house once learning the news.
Upon hearing that Zach and Juvie were what did you guys do?
We were already dressed and stuff, so we just left with Fredo's house.
Was anybody upset or crying?
Yeah, we all were crying.
Was this young man crying?
Yes.
Are you sure of that?
Positive.
And where'd you go?
Fredo's house.
Did there come a time after you got to the house of Fredo Bang that Cortland Henry showed up?
Yes.
Did Cortland Henry tell you what happened?
Yeah, he said it was a drive-by.
Davis mentions that he saw YNW Melly crying inside of the YNW house, showing emotions for what happened to his two best friends. This will all be taken into account when the jury selects their final verdict.